Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, IELTS Vocabulary Listening Practice, topic name is 20 plus IELTS Vocabulary Words, Part 11. And welcome, everyone. We're doing a really focused deep dive today. Our goal, well, it's pretty sophisticated, actually. We're aiming to go beyond just, listing words. We're digging into 22 key vocabulary items. These are specifically chosen to strengthen your ability to handle complex ideas and express yourself with real academic clarity. It's about shifting from just functional language to something more advanced. Sophisticated, really. The kind of expression that scores well, especially in exam situations like the IELTS.
That's right. Making that shift from basic function to, let's say, finesse is so important at this level. Success isn't just about knowing a word's definition, is it? It's about understanding the context. When you choose a word like testament or imperative, you're signaling more than just effect. You're conveying significance. This list we've put together lets us really zoom in on those subtle differences between words that seem similar, like why pick arduous instead of just difficult?
Or attenuate over weaken.
Exactly. Getting those nuances down, that's the secret weapon for, effective paraphrasing across reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And it helps avoid that feeling of being overwhelmed by focusing on language tools that give you the most impact.
I couldn't agree more. It really does demand a careful, almost forensic look at language.
Yeah.
So let's dive right in. Section 1, the language of adaptation and consistency. These are words that help us talk about things like changing status, making modifications, and stability. Super relevant for fields like biology, engineering, even finance.
Okay, let's break them down.
First up, we have domesticate. The basic meaning is to tame or cultivate an animal or plant for human use. And the synonyms are cultivate, tame, train, acclimate. When I think about domesticate, the first thing that comes to mind is this huge historical sweep. It spans millennia. And that dual application is so interesting. On one hand, you've got the anthropological side, early humans taking wolves and through selective breeding, ending up with dogs. That's taming, yes, but it's also adaptation, even a genetic change over time. Then on the other hand, there's the agricultural angle. Taking wild plants, like grasses, and cultivating them into things like wheat or corn-reliable high-yield crops. It's the same core idea, isn't it? Taking something wild and making it manageable, useful for people. But one's about plants, the other's about animal behavior and, utility.
That historical context is crucial because it really implies permanence. A dog isn't just trained, it's fundamentally domesticated, both genetically and behaviorally. But let's push on the limits a bit. Consider the example. Efforts to domesticate exotic species often fail in new environments. This really brings the synonym acclimate into focus, doesn't it?
Oh, how so?
Well, domestication isn't just training. It absolutely requires successful adaptation to a completely new environment. So if an exotic species fails to acclimate, maybe it can't handle the temperature or the food sources, then the domestication attempt fails. Its biology resists the change. So domesticate implies more than just taming. It implies successful long-term acclimation, a biological integration into a human-managed world. Using the word suggests a really fundamental shift.
That adds a layer of complexity. It suggests many attempts at just taming wouldn't qualify as full domestication because the adaptation isn't complete or successful. It definitely elevates the word. Okay, moving from that long-term adaptation to something about consistency. Our next word is steady, meaning firmly fixed or constant, not changing or fluctuating, regular. Synonyms are regular, stable, constant, unwavering. Steady pops up in a couple of key areas, I think. There's the physical sense. An engineer wants a bridge to be steady, right? Firmly fixed, not vibrating or moving, or you hold your camera steady for a clear photo. That's the mechanical side. But like a lot of advanced vocabulary, the abstract meaning often carries more weight in discussions. I like the example about financial security. A steady income provides essential financial security. Here, steady isn't about being physically still. It's describing a pattern, predictability, consistent earnings over time.
And that element of constancy, that regularity, is what makes steady so useful for describing progress. While stable might just mean something isn't easily knocked over, steady often implies this sustained, continuous movement forward without big ups and downs.
Like in economics.
Absolutely. Economists talk about steady growth, a constant predictable rate, rather than those volatile boom and bust cycles. So when the example says their steady progress led to success, it's really emphasizing the unwavering nature of their work. It wasn't stop-start, it was continuous. It's the perfect word for describing that kind of constancy you need for long-term goals. Like if you're studying for a tough exam, you need steady effort, regular, predictable, stable work. Not just random bursts. It suggests control, measured advancement.
That focus on consistent effort links nicely to resilience, actually, which brings us to unhurt, meaning not injured or harmed, unharmed. Synonyms include unharmed, unscathed, intact, safe. The great thing about unhurt is how broadly it applies. We usually think of personal safety first, right? Like emerging unhurt from a car accident, a huge relief. But it works just as well for things. You know, a package arrives unhurt, even if the box looks a bit battered from shipping. In both cases, the subject, person, or object went through something risky and came out undamaged.
And exploring the synonyms here really shows the kind of precision we're aiming for. Unhurt feels most natural for living things avoiding injury. But intact is often the more specific term for objects. It emphasizes structural wholeness, nothing broken, nothing missing.
So like an ancient vase.
Exactly. If it survived a journey, you'd likely say it arrived intact, stressing that it wasn't cracked or chipped. Then you have unscathed, which feels a bit more literary, maybe dramatic. It often implies surviving something quite significant against the odds, like surviving harsh criticism unscathed or a major crisis unstaved.
So context is key.
Always. Adhering to safety rules helps you stay unhurt. That connects the seemingly simple word to the really important idea of following procedures, of prevention. It highlights the outcome, sure, but also points back to the actions needed to achieve it.
That subtle difference, unhurt for general survival, intact for structural completeness, is a fantastic example of the precision needed. Okay, that wraps up our first section on adapting and staying consistent.
Right. Now we shift gears a bit. This section is all about the language of evidence, reputation, and ethical principles. These words are absolutely essential for building strong arguments, especially in essays, and for discussing social or political issues.
Sounds good. Our first word here is testament, meaning something that serves as a sign or evidence of a specified fact, testimony. The synonyms given are testimony, proof, evidence, attestation. Testament strikes me as having this really interesting dual personality. You've got the formal, legal sense, a last will and testament, which is a documented declaration about inheritance, very concrete, very official.
Legal document.
But then it leaps into the abstract, the symbolic. Like ancient ruins are a testament to the civilization's ingenuity, or her success is a testament to her hard work. Why choose testament in these cases instead of just saying proof or evidence? What extra layer does it add?
It adds a layer of significance, of undeniable weight. Simple proof might just be a single data point, a statistic. But using testament elevates that proof. It turns it into a profound, almost solemn attestation. It suggests the evidence is so powerful, so compelling, that it stands as an unequivocal declaration of that fact.
So it's stronger than just proof.
Much stronger, rhetorically. When you call something a testament, you're lending it a high degree of credibility and intellectual force. You're insisting on the importance of whatever it represents. For instance, if a team wins a major championship against all odds, you wouldn't just say their win showed teamwork. You'd say it was a testament to their teamwork. It implies the victory itself is like a lasting monument to that quality.
That makes a lot of sense, giving your point more gravitas. Okay, building on evidence and reliability. Let's look at trustworthy, meaning able to be relied on as honest or truthful, reliable. Synonyms are reliable, dependable, credible, faithful. Trustworthy, that's a concept we use all the time, maybe without even thinking about the word itself. Personally, you need a trustworthy friend, someone who keeps secrets. That's about dependability.
Right, personal reliance.
But then there's the academic side, which is critical. Choosing trustworthy sources for research. That means assessing if the information is credible, if it's truthful. The core idea is reliance. Can you depend on this person or this information?
And this word is deeply connected to the idea of earned status. A trustworthy reputation, as the outline notes, isn't something you just get. It's built over time. It's cultivated through consistent actions, being faithful, being reliable. In research, if a source is deemed untrustworthy, maybe because it's biased or the data isn't verifiable, then any argument you build on it just crumbles.
Yeah, the foundation is weak.
Exactly. So for you, the learner, Recognizing that trustworthy covers both ethical integrity, being faithful personally, and informational rigor, being credible academically, lets you use it accurately in different situations. You could talk about a trustworthy news source or a trustworthy colleague.
That idea of earned character and faithfulness leads us nicely into moral, defined as concerned with the principles of right and wrong behavior. Ethical. Synonyms are ethical, virtuous, righteous, principled. Moral is incredibly versatile. I see sort of three key ways it's used. First, there's the lesson, the moral of the story, like the principle you take away from a fable about honesty.
Like didactic use. Yeah.
Second, there's the active choice, making moral decisions when faced with a tricky dilemma. That's about individual ethical action. And third, there's the societal framework, upholding moral standards within a community. This refers to the shared values that guide group behavior. It really covers the whole spectrum, from abstract lessons to actual rules.
It truly acts as a linguistic bridge, doesn't it? Connecting individual psychology with broader societal structures. If you think about the link between virtuous behavior, individual good actions, and the establishment of principled standards for society, you see how one informs the other. What a culture considers righteous often stems from examples of virtuous conduct.
Okay.
So when you discuss a moral dilemma, you're wrestling with conflicting values. When you discuss moral standards, you're looking at the fundamental rules of a group. This range makes it perfect for analytical essays exploring ethics, whether in politics, tech, philosophy, letting you discuss both the internal conscience and the external codes or laws.
And finally, in this section, we look at how that character is perceived outwardly, the social value it creates. Repute. Repute means the opinion generally held of someone or something. Reputation. Synonyms are reputation, standing, esteem, renown. Repute seems entirely focused on how others see you or see something. We see it applied to institutions, a restaurant having a good repute for its service. That's a widely held positive opinion about how well it functions.
Public perception.
Or it can be personal. His repute as an expert grew, meaning his recognized status, his esteem, increased within his field. The key thing seems to be what the public thinks, that external judgment.
And it's really important to draw a clear line between repute and trustworthy. We talked about trustworthy being an internal quality. You either are reliable or you aren't, fundamentally.
Right.
Repute is the outside view, the perception. You could theoretically have a high repute, great renown based on past glories, but maybe secretly you're not trustworthy anymore.
Okay, so they aren't the same thing.
Not necessarily. Of course, maintaining a good repute usually requires ongoing integrity, but repute itself is that external image, that social asset. It can be quite fragile. In discussions, say, about politics or business, talking about an organization's repute means focusing on their public standing and how that affects their influence or success, rather than necessarily digging into their internal ethics at that moment. A leader with high repute might command more influence, even if their private character isn't perfect.
That distinction, internal character versus external perception, is crucial for making nuanced arguments.
Excellent. That wraps up our look at credibility and social standing.
Okay, moving into our third section. Here we're focusing on the language tools we need to differentiate between concepts like fitness for purpose, importance, and the level of challenge involved. These are the criteria we use constantly for evaluation, setting priorities, and making assessments in any academic or professional setting.
Great. First word is applicable, meaning relevant or appropriate to a particular situation. Synonyms include relevant, pertinent, suitable, apposite. Applicable feels like it's all about setting boundaries, about whether something fits a specific context. The examples highlighted this well. You have restrictive relevance. This rule is applicable only to new members. Clearly defines who it affects and excludes everyone else.
That's a clear limit.
But then you have broad usability. Skills applicable in many jobs, describing expertise that fits lots of different roles. So the word itself can define both narrow and wide relevance. And for real precision, especially in formal writing, looking at synonyms like pertinent and apposite is helpful. Checking if a rule or a law is applicable isn't just checking if it's vaguely related. It's a rigorous check. Does it fit the situation accurately? Is it suitable? Does it match the context without conflict? It implies more than just relevance. It demands appropriateness.
So, like in research?
Definitely. In critical thinking, asking, is this evidence applicable to my argument, forces you to ensure the context of the data truly matches how you intend to use it. It stops you from just grabbing related-sounding facts that don't actually support your specific point.
Good point. Okay, from suitable, we jump to absolutely essential with imperative, meaning of vital importance, crucial or essential. Synonyms: crucial, vital, essential, urgent. Imperative just feels strong, doesn't it? It carries the sense of being non-negotiable. When an example says it is imperative to act now on climate change, it's not just saying it's important.
No, it's much more than that.
It's conveying urgent necessity. There's no real alternative. Similarly, safety protocols are imperative in the laboratory. They aren't just helpful suggestions, they're critical core requirements.
Using imperative instantly signals to your audience that you're talking about something vital, something that cannot be skipped or ignored. Compare it to just saying, it's important to communicate clearly. If you instead say, clear communication is imperative for team success, you're implying that without it, success is basically impossible. The whole thing could fail.
It really ups the stakes.
It does. It's a powerful rhetorical tool for highlighting something as critically urgent. When you're writing, say, a proposal or a strong argument, using imperative marks out a key requirement or solution that the reader absolutely must accept as fundamental.
Right, so understanding the difference between merely applicable and truly imperative is, well, imperative for clear communication.
Nicely put.
Okay, that brings us to the resistance or effort involved when dealing with these important tasks. Difficult, meaning needing much effort or skill to accomplish. Hard. Synonyms: hard, challenging, tough, arduous. Difficult seems like the general catch-all term for different kinds of struggles. There's cognitive difficulty, like a really complex puzzle needing a lot of brain power.
Mental effort.
There's developmental difficulty. Think about the initial struggle when you're learning a completely new language. That steep learning curve. And then there's personal difficulty making those complex ethical choices that really test you. So it covers effort across the board: physical, intellectual, moral.
And the synonyms here help us dial in the specific intensity of that difficulty. Challenging often has a slightly positive spin, doesn't it? It suggests something is hard, yes, but also stimulating. Something that pushes you to grow. Something you might even look forward to tackling.
Like a challenging project at work.
Right. But then you have arduous. That suggests difficulty requiring sustained, maybe even painful, prolonged effort, a real grind. Think of the arduous journey across a desert versus a challenging hike up a steep hill. Arduous implies a significant, draining effort over time.
That's a great distinction.
It is. For an advanced learner, choosing correctly is key. Describing, say, years of research as arduous conveys the prolonged struggle much better than just calling it difficult. It shows you understand the specific nature and intensity of the effort involved.
That spectrum of effort, from stimulating, challenging to grueling arduous, is a fantastic linguistic tool to have.
Indeed. Now, this next section focuses on verbs describing how things are altered. We're looking at repair, reduction, or weakening the dynamic processes of change, both in the physical world and in more abstract ideas.
Okay, starting with mend. The meaning is to repair something that is broken or damaged. Synonyms are repair, fix, patch, restore. Mend really bridges the gap between the concrete and the abstract, doesn't it? Literally, the tailor mends clothes, the mechanic mends an engine. It often suggests a careful repair, maybe intricate, not just a quick fix or replace.
Careful work, yeah.
But the metaphorical use is where it gets really interesting. The old saying that time can mend a broken heart. Here, it's about healing, emotional restoration, returning to stability. So it covers both physical fixing and psychological recovery.
And the synonym restore helps understand the full implication. While fix can be quite general and immediate, restore implies bringing something back to its original ideal condition, its previous state or function. Mending often carries that sense of care, suggesting the damage was significant but fixable. If you talk about needing to mend relationships, say between countries, it suggests a careful diplomatic process aimed at bringing back stability, not just papering over cracks. It implies wanting to return to wholeness.
Nicely explained. Okay, sometimes change involves making things smaller, which brings us to abbreviate, meaning to shorten a word, phrase, or text, to condense. Synonyms: condense, shorten, truncate, abridge. I see two main uses here. First, there's the simple shortening of a word out of convention or for formality, like doctor becoming doctor.
Standard abbreviations.
Right. But second, there's the really important process of shortening larger things, like abbreviating a long report down to a one-page summary. One is stylistic, the other is a core skill involving significant condensation of information.
And this is a perfect spot to get into some linguistic specifics useful for academic work.
Yeah.
Let's distinguish abridge from truncate. When you abridge a book, you shorten it, remove details, but you try to keep the main story and meaning intact.
Like a Reader's Digest version.
Kind of, yeah. But when you truncate something, like data or text, you often just cut it off short, sometimes losing important information at the end. It's a harsher cut. Also, it's useful to remember the noun forms. DOC/DAR is an abbreviation. NASA is an acronym formed from initial letters but pronounced as a word. They're different things.
Ah, good distinction.
And the process of abbreviating your own notes, say, during a lecture, that's all about efficiency, using symbols, shortened forms, without losing the core meaning. Absolutely vital skill.
That clarity on abridge versus truncate and abbreviation versus acronym, that's exactly the kind of detailed knowledge that helps you sound more proficient.
Okay, third word in this set is dilute, meaning to make a liquid thinner or weaker by adding water or another solvent. To weaken, synonyms: weaken, thin, water down, attenuate. Dilute works well for both physical stuff and abstract ideas. Physically, obvious diluting chemicals, or juice with water to make it less concentrated.
Adding a solvent. Metaphorically, it seems to focus on weakening impact. Like the advice, don't dilute your main message with too many extra details. Keep it strong and focused. And it's also used for emotions, right? How time can dilute strong feelings like grief or anger, making them less intense.
Absolutely. And the synonyms offer really interesting clues about tone and formality. Attenuate is the very formal, often technical term. You'd see it in science or engineering, attenuating a signal, a sound wave, maybe the effect of a virus. It's quite neutral.
Okay, more scientific.
Yes. Whereas water down is almost always informal, idiomatic, and usually negative. It implies someone deliberately weakens something, an idea, a proposal, a principle, often cynically, to make it less effective or controversial.
Like watering down a policy.
Exactly. Critics might accuse a government of watering down environmental regulations until they're practically useless. So if you say someone diluted their argument, it suggests a significant, often negative compromise from its original strength.
Great nuances there. So we have careful repair with mend, precise shortening with abbreviate, and weakening either measured or compromised with dilute.
Right. Our next group of words helps us describe degree, social position, and place or context. They add that crucial grounding and specificity you need in higher level communication.
Okay, starting with an adverb describing extent. Substantially, meaning to a great or significant extent, considerably. Synonyms. Considerably, significantly, largely, materially. Substantially feels like the word you reach for when you want to say a lot, but more formally. You want to stress the impact was major, measurable, not just minor. When costs increase substantially, it means a big hit to the budget, not just a small rise. If a plan is modified substantially, the changes were fundamental, reshaping the whole thing.
It really works as a strong intensifier, especially in reporting or academic analysis. It signals that the change or contribution was meaningful, material. In finance, if profits rise substantially, it's enough to affect market perception, maybe the stock price. If you contribute substantially to a project, your input wasn't marginal. It was a major factor in its success.
So it flags importance based on scale.
Precisely. When you're analyzing data or trends, using substantially tells the reader, pay attention to this, the magnitude here matters, it's not trivial. It's how you report meaningful scale effectively.
Got it. Next, we shift to social structure with nobility, meaning the group of people belonging to the noble class in a country, the aristocracy. Synonyms: the aristocracy, elite, gentry, peerage. Historically, this word is tied directly to power structures, isn't it? The nobility attended the royal banquet. It refers very specifically to that high social class, the peerage, who had hereditary titles, land, and political influence.
Based on birthright.
It speaks to the rigid social hierarchies of the past.
And while the main definition is sociological, referring to that specific class, the aristocracy or gentry, the cultural echo of the word, is still relevant. Think about stories and legends about the nobility. They often inform our modern ideas of chivalry, honor, refined behavior. Even when we use the adjective noble today, a noble act, it carries this sense of moral high ground or greatness, which stems from the historical ideal, however inaccurate, of this class.
That's interesting.
For academic work, though, especially history or sociology, recognizing nobility as a distinct, powerful, and exclusive social group, the elite of their time defined by title and wealth, is key.
Okay, now from social space to physical space. Hall, meaning a corridor or passageway in a building. Synonyms: corridor, hallway, passage, foyer. Hall is interesting because its meaning really depends on the building, on the scale. It can be just a simple enclosed walkway, a corridor connecting rooms, walk down the hall to the third door.
Right, a passage.
But it can also mean a really large open room used for gatherings, like a town hall or a school assembly hall. And sometimes it just refers to the shape long and potentially echoing. Echoes filled the empty hall.
The spatial context defines it entirely. If someone says, wait in the hall, you might need to clarify. Are they talking about the narrow passage outside the bedrooms or the grand entrance area, the foyer, where people gather before an event?
Good point.
In architecture, hall often implies a certain scale and public accessibility, so knowing whether it means an intimate hallway or a large assembly room is crucial for describing an environment accurately, especially if you're writing descriptively.
And finishing this section with something very specific, French dressing, meaning a salad dressing made with oil, vinegar, and seasonings, vinaigrette, synonyms, vinaigrette, oil dressing, French sauce. A quick culinary vocabulary lesson here. It's that specific, often tangy condiment, a vinaigrette basically, usually oil and vinegar, maybe some herbs designed to add flavor to salads.
And this type of specific niche vocabulary is actually quite important. While you could just say salad dressing or maybe oil dressing, using the precise term French dressing, or its more sophisticated synonym vinaigrette, shows a higher level of command over the language. It allows for clear, unambiguous communication, whether you're ordering food, reading a recipe, or even describing cultural food practices. It's a small example, but it shows how precision elevates everyday language.
Excellent point. Okay, we've covered scale, status, and specifics. Now for our final section, conditions, assessment, and those sudden dramatic outcomes.
Right. This last set of words equips us for discussing possibilities, making careful judgments, looking at risks, and describing those moments of sudden, high-impact change or failure.
We start with a fundamental word for logic, if, meaning. Introducing a conditional clause, whether in indirect questions, synonyms, whether supposing, in case, provided. If is just foundational, isn't it? For setting up hypotheses, exploring conditions in any kind of argument, and has that dual role. You use it when you're uncertain about something. I wonder if this plan will work, asking about possibility.
Introducing doubt or query.
But you also use it to set a condition that might not ultimately matter. It doesn't matter if it rains, the show will go on. Linking cause and effect, but under potential conditions or uncertainty.
For academic writing, mastering conditional clauses using if is just essential. It lets you explore consequences, suggest alternatives, establish dependencies between ideas, and we should pay attention to the synonym provided or provided that. While if introduces a general condition, provided really emphasizes that the condition must be met for the main outcome to happen. It adds formal weight to the prerequisite.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The project will receive funding provided the final report is approved. It makes the approval a strict requirement. Using this kind of strong conditional language is a clear sign of advanced analytical thinking.
Okay, that's useful. From setting conditions, we move to judging value with to evaluate, meaning to form an idea of the amount, number, or value of, to assess, synonyms, to assess, appraise, judge, analyze. Evaluation seems to be everywhere. In business, you evaluate a proposal before investing. In education, teachers evaluate student work. In finance, analysts evaluate stocks. It's that process of critically reviewing something to determine its worth before you make a decision or take action.
And it's crucial to see evaluation as a structured process, not just a quick opinion. The synonyms appraise and judge point towards the analytical depth involved. When you appraise something, like a piece of art, you're assigning a value based on specific criteria. When you evaluate a scientific theory, you're judging its logical consistency, its supporting evidence.
So it's systematic.
It has to be. It's about applying objective standards as much as possible to form a considered analytical assessment of quality or value. It goes way beyond just looking at something. It demands systematic analysis, essential for any high-level task.
And during evaluation, sometimes we identify potential problems, which leads us to dangerous, meaning able or likely to cause harm or injury, unsafe, synonyms, unsafe, hazardous, perilous, risky. The examples help classify the types of risk here. There's situational danger, like driving too fast on icy roads, purely down to the circumstances.
Right, context-dependent risk.
There's a material danger. Dealing with dangerous chemicals requires protective gear. The substance itself is the risk. And then there's voluntary danger, describing extreme sports as dangerous but thrilling. a chosen risk. So the word helps us specify how something poses a threat.
And this vocabulary group is vital for accurate risk assessment. The synonyms let us fine-tune the level of perceived threat. Hazardous often implies a significant potential for harm, frequently linked to environments or materials like hazardous waste disposal.
Okay, potential harm.
But perilous suggests extreme, maybe imminent danger, often life-threatening. A perilous journey through a war zone or a perilous climb. It signals a much higher level of threat. So when you're communicating about safety, knowing whether a situation is merely dangerous, needs caution, or truly perilous, needs immediate drastic action, is critical. Your word choice reflects the urgency and the scale of the risk.
That's a powerful distinction. Okay, next, a verb signifying sudden dramatic rupture. To explode, meaning to burst or shatter violently and noisily, to blow up. Synonyms: to blow up, detonate, erupt, burst. Explode covers both the literal physical event and metaphorical outbursts, doesn't it? Literally, fireworks explode, a bomb explodes, a sudden violent shattering.
It's physical rupture, yeah.
But the abstract use is maybe even more common in discussions. Pent-up anger can explode into an argument. Social tensions can explode into protest. It describes that sudden, violent release of contained energy, whether chemical, physical, or emotional.
And the difference between synonyms like detonate and erupt is really useful for precision. Detonate usually implies an ignition, a trigger. Someone detonated the device. There's often an initiator.
Okay, implies a cause.
Yes. Whereas erupt focuses more on the sudden, violent release itself. It's very commonly used for non-physical things, emotions erupting, laughter erupting, volcanoes erupting. So this allows you to be more specific. Was it triggered, detonated, or did it just burst forth, erupted? It adds accuracy to your description, whether literal or figurative.
Good point. And we finish our list of 22 words with a final verb signaling complete failure. To collapse, meaning to fall down or give way suddenly. To break down, synonyms: to break down, crumble, cave in, fall apart. Collapse just sounds so final, so sudden and total. We see it used for structures failing. An old building collapses under snow.
Structural failure.
We see it for physical breakdown. An athlete collapses from heat stroke. And importantly, for abstract systems failing peace talks, collapse due to irreconcilable differences. The entire system breaks down. It's incredibly versatile for describing sudden, complete failure.
It really is the definitive word for catastrophic failure. The synonyms crumble and fall apart add nuance. Crumble might suggest a slightly slower decay, breaking into pieces over time, whereas collapse is usually sudden, total, structural. Understanding how collapse applies across physical things, buildings, bodies, and sociopolitical systems, economies, negotiations, lets you use it to convey the immense stakes involved. When you say negotiations collapsed, it signals a total abrupt failure with potentially huge consequences.
That really brings us full circle, showing the impact these words can have. We've reached the end of our deep dive into this vocabulary set. We've really worked today to substantially expand your linguistic toolkit, haven't we? We covered 22 words aimed at pushing your expression towards that sophisticated level needed for exams like IELTS. We went from basics like adaptation with domesticate and stability with steady, through defining integrity with moral and trustworthy, all the way to judging relevance with applicable and describing dramatic failure with explode and collapse. You should now feel better equipped to make your writing and speaking more nuanced, more accurate, and, well, more academically powerful.
And that contextual sophistication, knowing when and why to use each word, is truly your greatest asset. Now that you understand these nuances, like how repute differs from trustworthy or why attenuate might be better than dilute in a formal context, here's a final thought for you to consider. Given how crucial it is to clearly state what's necessary in any argument, think about this. Which single word from today's list is the most imperative for you to start using consciously, correctly, in your own speaking or writing practice starting this week? Pick one. Really focus on its precise meaning and use it. That's a great way to reinforce what you've learned today.
That's a fantastic challenge to help make this learning stick. Thank you all for joining us for this vocabulary deep dive. Like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.